Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Trasher Football. Now, I know a lot of you guys don't like the idea of me doing NFL stuff, but I'm a casual NFL fan and I'm a college football fan. So, being that, I like to pay attention to the draft every year, see where some of my favorite players that are seniors or juniors that leave early to go into the NFL draft. And I thought, for some of you loyal guys who watch the NFL or want to carry on and see my predictions for a mock draft, I think I'd do a mock draft video for you guys just because I think that you guys would enjoy it. This is not something I'm taking too seriously. I'm not going to pretend like I spent an entire month doing research. I don't even know who all of these guys are. I've heard of a lot of them, but I know it's a lot different than, like someone like Mel Kiper, who's been, doing professional mock draft, big boards, and stuff like that for like years of his life. So I'm not going to pretend that I know what I'm talking about because I don't. But I just want to do this to let you guys know what my opinions are and where I think that these players will be going. So in round one, pick one, I have, sorry about the mic squeak, I have Caleb Williams obviously going to the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears, this might be the most obvious first, overall pick in a long time. There's no other player that could go to Chicago other than Caleb Williams. It's just an obvious pick. He's been the best player in college football, at least best quarterback, I guess you could say, over the last couple of seasons. Now at USC, he's shown his unbelievable arm talent, and he can run the ball too. So Chicago's getting a good one. Just as long as they can get him some good weapons, then I think that Chicago should be good. I just hope that he doesn't turn out to be a bust. And up next, we have the Washington Commanders. Now, this one's tricky to me because they could either go with Drake May or Jayden Daniels. I think Drake May is the obvious number 2 pick here, but I feel like in some other people's minds, they could very easily be taking Jayden Daniels here, but I think they're taking Drake May. He's shown off to be a really good quarterback at North Carolina. He has lost some games that he shouldn't, and he's made a couple of decisions that he shouldn't, but this class is so quarterback heavy that it's kind of hard. It's very easy who's the number 1, and it's Caleb Williams. But picking the number 2, 3, and even 4 is where things start to get a little bit tricky. But I think Drake May is probably the obvious number 2 to go to Washington. And I think for number 3, I think another quarterback's going off the board, and I think Jayden Daniels is going to the New England Patriots after Bill Belichick got fired from his head coaching job after eons of being the head coach for the Patriots. 3 or 4 years post Brady, you have a new head coach. It's a whole new Patriots team, and I think Jayden Daniels could very well lead them into the future of, possibly becoming another franchise. But the big thing about Jayden Daniels is he doesn't slide. He needs to, if he wants to be good, I know he's good, but if he wants to stay in the NFL, he needs to stay healthy. He needs to learn to slide. He needs to be more safe. Being more safe means more money, more playing time, blah blah blah. But up next, I have the Arizona Cardinals taking Marvin Harrison Jr. What a talent is Marvin Harrison Jr., by the way. Probably the greatest wide receiver in college football of the last couple of years. Now, I know Ohio State really hasn't done anything in the national prominence championship-wise, but they've still looked really, really good. I mean, like only 1, maybe 2 lost seasons over his career at Ohio State. It's a shame that he never got a Heisman or a national championship ring. He definitely deserved one of them. He's an unbelievable wide receiver. But the thing is that's why football is a team sport and not an individual sport. But Marvin Harrison is definitely the best non-quarterback player to come out of this draft, and in my opinion, probably the number 2 overall player out of all of the players in the entire draft. Now, number 5 right here. I could very, very well see the Vikings trading up, so I think that's what I'm going to do. I don't... Oh, I can't even do a trade here, can I? Alright, so I was going to do a trade here, but this website won't let me unless I pay a subscription to it. So in real life, I would say that the Vikings would trade up and take a quarterback here, probably J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix. But since I can't trade, I'm just going to go ahead and move on with the pick. In this way, I do think if they keep the pick, then the Chargers will take Malik Nabers. He's been one of the other wide receivers in college football that have been regarded as one of the top dogs. In my opinion, he's always been the number 2 guy behind Marvin Harrison Jr. You know, Marvin Harrison's dad was a Hall of Famer, so I'm not going to, knock on him for that. But Malik Nabers is 100% the pick here, I guess, the next best man up. But we'll obviously have to see, because that one's a little iffy for me, because in my opinion, I think the Vikings trade up. This website is so money hungry that I can't do that. But right here for the New York Giants, this one right here is a little, this is where it gets tricky here. And so in this next pick, I think Rome Odunze from Washington, who has, I know I keep saying just one less and one less. He's been the number 3 wide receiver in my eyes. You know, Malik Nabers, I feel like he's just got that a little bit of SEC pride in him right there. And I do know that the Giants probably need a quarterback more than they need a receiver, but I feel like they could probably get more done in a trade or free agency than they could in the NFL draft. I don't know if I'd trust some of the other quarterbacks that are still left in the draft, in the top 6. But we'll have to see later in the draft if I think that they'll get taken or not. But right here for the Titans, this one, I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name, but it's from UCLA, Laiatu Laitu, I'm guessing is how his name is pronounced. He's just a really fantastic defensive end to come out of the Pac-12, and I don't even know, can't say Pac-12 anymore, they barely exist anymore. But in my opinion, I think he's probably the best defensive player on the line in the draft. And in my opinion, the best defensive player, it really could be Cooper DeJean or DeJean. I don't even know how to pronounce it, but I've seen this guy play a lot with how fantastic Iowa's defense is. If Iowa had a half-decent offense, they probably could have been championship contenders, but their offense was so pitiful that their team was in fact pitiful. But they really had one of the best defenses and one of the better secondaries in the Big Ten. They didn't score a lot, but they always held your opponent to a lot less points than a lot of other Big Ten teams would, and he's one of the main reasons for it. I do think that Cooper will be going to the Falcons, at least in my mock draft here. And up next, this one's really challenging for me to think, because, the Bears, they already got their quarterback in Caleb Williams. Do you go defense to balance it out, or do you go for a wide receiver to get the talent for Caleb Williams? Because you could either go, Adonai Mitchell, Ladd McConkey is also really good, but I think he might fall till later in the draft. Right here, I really wanted to go Byron Murphy just because of the fact that he played in a really more competitive Big 12, but I really think that Jerzon Newton here from Illinois is probably the better talent after comparing both of their NFL draft profiles against each other. I think he edges it out just a little bit over Byron Murphy. Instead, I think Newton from Illinois gets the pick here to go to the Bears as their defensive pick to balance out their quarterback and pick overall number 1. I think this one right here is pretty obvious. Joe Alt, the best offensive lineman in the entire draft. Get some protection for Aaron Rodgers, because you don't want him to tear his Achilles again. He really had a great entrance last year and then got injured just a few plays into the season and then was eliminated from playing the entire rest of the season. Poor Aaron Rodgers, man. He just, he needs the protection. They're already getting a lot of talent through free agency. I think just the best pick here is just to get an offensive tackle, and that being Joe Alt, who's the best in the draft. And right here, this is where it gets sketchy, because a lot of these quarterbacks that are falling to this spot right here are a lot of the quarterbacks that a lot of quarterback-hungry teams that can't risk giving trades away. I guess I have to put J.J. McCarthy here. He never did anything huge in the ranks of college football except for win the national championship. He never won the Heisman Trophy. He did win a couple of Big Ten awards stuff, but he has shown to be a good general at quarterback. He can direct a team. Like I said, he led a college football championship team. You know, we'll have to see where he goes and if the Vikings do pick him up. Like I said, they could have traded up to take him earlier, but I don't think any other teams really needed a quarterback for that matter. And speaking of quarterback hungry teams, we go to the Broncos. Are they willing to pick up a quarterback early in the NFL draft right here? I don't know, because there's a lot of other quarterback hungry teams left in the draft here. But in my opinion, just comparing, I think that they could also get a quarterback either later in the draft, which I'm only doing a first round mock right here. I think they pick up Adonai Mitchell, who's been one of the better wide receivers of the entire Big 12. And of course, looking like one of the best ones here in the NFL draft right here. You know what I mean? This could very well be the turning point if they could grab a quarterback there. You know, after getting rid of Russell Wilson, sending him to the Steelers, you're now quarterbackless. But I do think that they could pick one up in a trade or free agency, or maybe later in the NFL draft. And right here, I do think Brock Bowers. I think the Raiders have to pick up the next best player. They probably do need a quarterback. They can also probably pick one up later in the NFL draft or later in the first round with a trade. We'll have to see there. I really did almost want to have Brock Bowers go to the Saints instead, but I really do think that the Raiders there just pick the next best person. Probably the best choice for the Raiders right there to do is just pick the next best player. I didn't realize that there was something like a notification that was playing during all that. I'm sorry. I think that might have been my Discord. I don't know. But what I was trying to say was, I do think that he's obviously the next best pick left up on the board right here. Just gonna put it out there because my mind is drawing a blank and I'm already wanting to move on to the next pick. Now, I think this one's obvious right here. Saints, they need a wide receiver, but they also apparently need a quarterback. You still have Derek Carr as quarterback, so I think that the obvious pick here is Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU. He's a home state guy. I think he'll end up being right at home with the Saints. You know, Derek Carr still has somewhat little bit of talent left in him before he probably decides to hang up his cleats within the next couple of years. I do think that that's probably the next obvious, best next up pick right here for the Saints right here and picking up a wide receiver. They have a quarterback. I think they're fine. So I think this is obviously another one of those other next big picks. This is probably the best Group 5 player of the entire draft, Quinyon Mitchell, who it's a shame to say that he drops down to number 15 because he's one of the higher ranked better players in the NFL draft. I don't think that that's an insult to him to let him drop. I think there's just other teams that were worse that needed other better positions other than a DB with corner. But I don't remember much about him. I do remember watching a couple of Toledo games, watching a little bit of action during the week. I do remember him being really good, but, that's against Group 5 teams in the MAC. Not the greatest, but, if you're winning and you're a good player, you very well have a chance of going into the NFL draft. And do keep in mind, please don't bully me in the comments down below. Like I said, I have no clue what I'm talking about. I'm not a big NFL fan. I'm more of a casual. I watch during the season maybe one game a week, maybe two, sometimes three, sometimes none. Excuse me, but I don't keep up with all the news as much as I do college football. So, like I said, I didn't study much ahead of this, and I don't pay attention to a lot of college football outside of really the group or the Power 5 conferences. Like I said, please don't be mad. This is just a casual fan's opinion. The more and more that this is making me think, I could either go Talise Fuaga, I guess that's how you pronounce it, or Troy Fautanu. I don't know much about offensive lines in college football. Like I said, the only one I really knew about was Joe Alt. I know I'm a big guy myself. When I played football, I only played for 1 year in middle school, but I played offensive line, so I have respect for him. I don't know much offensive line players except for the ones that play at Florida. So I guess I'm just going to have to pick the next best thing that's left up on the board. for the Seahawks. I don't really know who that guy is. I probably should, from when Oregon State whooped Florida in the Vegas Bowl a couple of years ago, but it is what it is. I think this one should be really obvious right here. Jaguars need to pick up the next best player up on the board. They needed someone in the backfield, Byron Murphy, one of the better defensive players in the draft, too, coming straight out of Texas, as we mentioned earlier. He probably could have gone earlier, but in my opinion, he probably falls down to this point. Not because I'm not knocking him. I just think that he very well could fall to this point, but we will have to see, obviously. And right here, get some protection for Joe Burrow. This is where I think Troy Fautanu, I guess that's how you pronounce it. I know him more than the other one, but the other one apparently has more talent than Troy. So I just picked the next best in order. I know a little bit about Troy, hearing him through all the mock draft stuff. He's probably a better player than the other guy. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I do think that the Bengals do need a tackle here to improve their offensive line. And then this one right here is really challenging because you still have Matthew Stafford, so I don't think they need a quarterback. You could very well take a corner here and take Terrion Arnold, or you can take Dallas Turner, who's another another really good defensive player. Or you could take linebacker. You could take, go down to Jared Verse instead. Or take a tackle and take Fashanu. In my opinion, I think you take Fashanu right here. Probably the next best player to take up here on the board. For the Rams, I don't think they need a quarterback yet. They still probably have a year or two left in Matthew Stafford, who can still sling it, by the way. But going on to the Steelers, my favorite NFL team, leaving it down to the top 3 players remaining are all Alabama players. This was challenging because it says they need a quarterback, which they don't anymore. They have Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. I don't know about wide receivers that are left up on the board. Let me see on here. Troy Franklin, probably going down too far. I think that they need to take J.C. Latham. I think they need to focus more on that offensive line. Make it be able to move apart to get bigger gains from Jalen Warren and Najee Harris. And now that you have Justin Fields coming in as backup quarterback when you have him play, because he can run all over the field. From a lot of you college people remembering him from when he played at Ohio State compared to when he played at Chicago, he can still run the ball really good. He didn't end up being the greatest passer, but man, could he run. And opening up that offensive line can really help Justin Fields run the ball and give protection to Russell Wilson, depending on who is playing quarterback when. And then another one right here, the Miami Dolphins. I think that they take Terrion Arnold. That's probably the weakest part, in my opinion. I know it says tight end, offensive line. I think that taking a corner would probably be the best. They lost Minka a couple of years ago. I know he was a safety, but getting someone extra in the backfield that's really good always helps. In my opinion, the quarterback of the defense is your DBs, and they kind of work together as one. They're the guys that are seeing the play unfold the most. The defensive line is the most quickly reactionary. It leaves time for the DBs to think and plot and usually get the job done if they're good at it. Now, right here, the Eagles. Now, the Eagles did fall apart a lot later last season. They still made it to the playoffs. They kind of stunk it up there a little bit. Sorry, I didn't mean to bump the mic there. They very well could take the next best player up and take Dallas Turner. I think that's what they take. They could take a wide receiver there, to improve their passing game a little bit. But I don't know what wide receiver they'd take that's still left up on the board. But we will have to see when or if the NFL draft comes. I say if it's going to, unless the world just ends now and before next week. But here we are, the Minnesota Vikings. Now, earlier in the draft for Minnesota, I had them taking J.J. McCarthy, so we could have them taking a wide receiver here to balance out and give a talent for him. Take somebody on the offensive line, or take someone from defense. Really mixed up right here between Jared Verse and Amarius Mims, 2 really good players that I had to see firsthand, as a Florida Gators fan. I do think that they have to take Amarius Mims right here. He's 100% the best tackle left. Then at that point, in my opinion, I don't know. I probably would take Jared Verse there, but to be safe later on in the draft, get some protection for J.J. McCarthy. Up next is the Dallas Cowboys, who did absolutely terrible in free agency. Even a casual fan such as me knows that. I don't even know if there's any good running backs in this draft. They could take Blake Corum in the second round. He does seem like somebody that is a second round worthy player. Jalen Wright was really good. Jonathan Brooks was also really good. I don't think they take a running back here. I don't know. Give me a minute to think. All right, so after a few minutes of thinking, I've finally come to the decision that Troy Franklin, the best wide receiver left up on the board, is probably the best pick. In my opinion, unless it's just an unbelievable talent or it's late in the first round, you don't take a running back in the first round. It's just not the best thing to do. You can take a running back in the second round. The only running backs I feel like that are first round pick worthy that are still left are like Saquon and Derrick Henry. I'm sure there's a couple of others that you could very well say are first round worthy, but I am just too tired to think. So make fun of me all you want in the comments. Right, here's another one that's really interesting. I think the Packers, they could take an offensive lineman here. I think that they take the next best player and they take Jared Verse. He's been one of the greatest players on defense for the Florida State Seminoles. Just been one of the most terrifying players in the ACC, probably the most terrifying defensive-wise in the ACC. I do think that it's the next best player up. The Packers' defense was not the greatest thing last year. I do think that taking a defensive lineman, though, could really help in this situation. And now for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I did say earlier that it's not smart to take a running back. They could take a running back here, but Kool-Aid McKinstry or Nate Wiggins, I feel like is the right pick here. But I don't know which. I think I'm going to take Kool-Aid McKinstry just because Clemson kind of fell off, and I'm not going to put that to one player, but that's kind of how I think when I do my NFL mock drafts. I'm not a hardcore NFL fan. I'm just a casual fan. And when it comes to college football outside of specifically the SEC, I don't know the most, which probably means I probably shouldn't have a outlet to discuss college football, especially get paid for it nonetheless. But I'm living and learning. That could be a mistake I regret in the future, but I think Kool-Aid McKinstry is probably the better pick right there. And then right here on the next one, the Cardinals, they're an awful team. They still have Kyler Murray, so they still could turn things around. I know that this is a reach, but I'm tired and I kind of want to end this. Nah, I'm not going to reach this early. Nate Wiggins is probably the best pick right here. Improve on the defense before you improve on the offense, in my opinion. You still have I think Hollywood Brown still plays for the Cardinals. I was wrong. He plays for the Chiefs. Okay, so they're probably screwed right there. They probably should have taken a wide receiver in Ladd McConkey, but we're not going to reach that far. I do think right here for the Bills is probably where you want to pick up someone like Ladd McConkey, or you could take Graham Barton, Graham Barton from Duke. I do remember hearing about him because I remember them talking about him in the Clemson game when Duke upset Clemson. I don't remember what they were talking to him about. I just remember them mentioning his name at least once. So that's why I'm going to pick him right there. And again, I think this is another very obvious pick. The Lions need a new center. I'm sorry, I was thinking of something different. Apparently, Frank Ragnow, the center of the Lions, is only allowed one center. I saw the letter C next to it, and I was like, obviously, the next best player up would be to take center until I did my research and found out that Frank Ragnow is a good center. I guess it doesn't hurt to develop talent under a star. Probably a waste of a pick to take a center there. If I could go back and change it, I would probably take somebody else. But we'll just have to see. Now, just to skip off of it, from further embarrassing myself right here, We have the Ravens. Now, the Ravens, they have enough talent to be a Super Bowl winning team. They have probably the number 2 quarterback in the NFL in Lamar Jackson, probably one of the only S tier quarterbacks left in the NFL. Him and Patrick Mahomes. The Ravens could very well take a wide receiver, and I think that they do take Ladd McConkey here. I think Ladd McConkey's probably the best wide receiver left in the NFL draft. I think that they're fine on offensive line. And I feel like taking wide receiver would be more important than corner right here. So to move on into our second to last pick with the San Francisco 49ers, the NFC champions. Now, you could have them obviously take an offensive lineman here. But where's the next best offensive lineman? I don't know. The 49ers, they have a quarterback. They have wide receivers. They have... Sorry, I just saw a bug flying around in my room. I think that was a moth. That scared the crap out of me. I hope that's not a wasp or anything. That might be a moth. I don't know. But, they probably just need to take the next best player. Take a DB and linebacker Peyton Wilson from NC State. Don't know much about the guy. I hate the fact that I don't. But just to move on to the next pick, because the 49ers are the most complete team. No, I feel like that'd be the Cowboys. I feel like the 49ers are the most complete team. Or did I say that already? I don't know. We'll have to... Whatever. I sound like a goofball. The last pick right here, the Chiefs, I don't want this to be the reason that a lot of you guys get mad at me. I think Ricky Pearsall's a better quarterback than Keon Coleman and Roman Wilson. I think the Chiefs take a wide receiver here. I think they take Ricky Pearsall. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been my NFL draft. I am obviously awful. Shut up, PFF. I don't care. I am obviously awful at NFL stuff and college stuff. Like I said, my takes are bad. If you don't like it, cry in the comments. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is the worst NFL mock draft on YouTube. Subscribe or whatever. Don't forget I'm doing that giveaway. Whatever. This video is running on almost 30 minutes long. I'll see you guys later.